Coming up on this episode of Bro Do You Even Talk Pinball, Gerry Stellenberg, founder and president of Multimorphic, is here. We're going to talk all things Multimorphic, P3, all the games they got coming up, where they've been, where they are, where they're going, all that and more coming up.
Double Super Jack!
What's going on, guys? This is episode 30 of Bro Do You Even Talk Pinball. It's July 23rd, 2018. And joining me is Gerry Stellenberg from Multimorphic. Thanks for joining us, Gerry.
Absolutely. Nice to be here, Kevin.
Awesome. So we reached out to you a couple months ago and said we'd love to stream this game, your series of games, your system, your pinball console, I like to call it, the P3 platform. I heard you talk about it in 2016, actually, when I got the shirt, Pinburg 2016. I came to your session and I was sold. I was like, I got to play this game. I actually played it there for the first time, an earlier version of Lexi. And I was like, this is really awesome. How can we get more people to kind of get their eyes on it? And you shipped us a machine and we've been playing the heck out of it. I really love it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been watching the streams and it's fun to see other people interact with this machine. It's something that obviously we haven't had a ton out there yet. Mm-hmm. So every time someone else gets it, it's neat to see them react to it.
Yeah, it's been a fun experience, and I've enjoyed like bringing other people on and letting them experience it for the first time too. But before we dig into the P3, let's get a little bit of background info on you. Like, why did you decide to get involved in making pinball machines and pinball parts? You started with a company called pinballcontrollers.com, right?
Right. So I don't know how many people start this dream with the idea of building a pinball manufacturing company. This is a silly thing to actually start out doing, but it kind of happened organically. I started collecting games back in the late 90s. I was up to 11 games at one point in my house. Started to get bored of them, started to think of new ideas that I could implement, started to think of things that either haven't been done in the industry at all or haven't been done for a while, and try to figure out new technologies, new ideas that I could bring. I'm a technology guy. I do electronics engineering. I develop logic. I develop FPGAs or logic chips. And I wanted to integrate new technology into pinball machines. So I had this idea to build a board to allow me to write new software code for existing games, to turn existing games into a more fun experience where you could play the game once. I had Theater of Magic, I had Attack from Mars, and I wanted to change up how they played because every time I turned them on, they were the same thing. So I developed this board. We called it the p-roc. It allowed us to swap in this board for the CPU in one of those machines and then write new code for it. And it just kind of rolled on from there. A bunch of people wanted it they wanted to customize their own games. The Dutch pinball guys wanted to throw it in a Bride of Pinbot and write new software for it. And then it just it picked up steam. We sold a few hundred of them. And then we got to the point where I wanted to expand the product line. We did driver boards, we did switch boards, and we got to the point where we had enough boards to build an entire pinball machine.
So the p-roc has really kind of fueled this homebrew pinball movement, would you say?
I think before the p-roc there was one homebrew game. Or there might have been, there was a PinMAME controller that you could go buy and try to piece together the hardware, but no one bought it because it was too hard to figure out. So there weren't any homebrew. There was a couple of guys, I think in Australia, who had a homebrew game at the time. But p-roc came out, and then it kind of blew up. Now there's literally hundreds of homebrew games now.
So what games is the p-roc in now? Because it's actually in production machines now too, right? Like Total Nuclear Annihilation.
Yes. So we have a whole community of p-roc users now. We have a Slack channels, which is an online channel where a bunch of the developers get together and talk, or people building homebrew games talk. That channel now has about 100 users on it. There's threads on the forums like Pinside where people talk about homebrew and figure out which boards they want and what they want to do and we talk about everything, how to build playfields, how to do artwork for a cabinet, how to, inlay your inserts, how to lay out a playfield, how to write software for them, how to get the hardware running, how to get the system in place. And out of that community has grown a few developers who have been hired or they've come up with machines that have been taken on by manufacturers like Total Nuclear Annihilation.
Rolls off the tongue.
Like Houdini. The Big Lebowski started Dutch Pinball after their Bride of Pinbot 2 effort. Kingpin, the Circus Maximus guys are looking at using our boards for their machine as well. So there's a lot of manufacturers using our systems now, which is great.
Yeah, it's amazing to see it go from a homebrew hobbyist kind of thing. And I guess it makes sense because people get used to working with the hardware and the platform, and then they move it into production.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people build these games not expecting to go to production. They just do something. Scott did it for fun.
Yeah.
Scott Denisi, who did Total Nuclear Annihilation, he built it because he wanted to. We were in the Slack channels, and he posted some ideas, and we gave our feedback, and then he built this game, which turned out to be incredible.
Yeah.
It's super fun, and I'm glad Spooky picked it up because that game needed to be made.
Absolutely.
But people start these games, and they don't intend, I think, to take them into production. They're just building something for themselves. And if people come to you and say, hey, I'll buy one, that gets your mind kind of turning in a different direction. You're like, well, if he will, maybe 100 other people will. Then maybe I can make some money doing this.
Exactly. So take us from pinball controllers and making these boards that have allowed folks to make homebrew games that have kind of come into production to, okay, I want to make a whole new pinball platform and start manufacturing pinball machines and this whole ecosystem too.
So it was very organic how that came to be. After the p-roc and after I developed the PD16 driver board, the Switch 16 switch board, and I developed an LED driver board, I had enough boards where I could build an entire machine. So a friend and I got together and we started talking about things we wanted to do. And the first thing I knew I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to track the position of a pinball as it rolled around a playfield. I wanted to put an LCD under that so that you could have a physical pinball, real flippers, real pinball, and have that interacting with dynamic graphics, dynamic artwork on a playfield, just like you would with your finger on an iPad. You can take this physical experience, interrelate it with a virtual experience, and create more content. Because in my mind, there's the problem I have with traditional pinball machines is you have this big piece of wood and you have some things in the upper portion of it, and then the lower third of the playfield, or the lower half, or even 2/3 in most games, it's just a painted piece of wood. And the ball rolls over this static playfield on its way to cool physical things. But in that lower part of the playfield, it's just dead space. So how could I implement new technologies or new ways of making use of that space in ways that will make games more interesting and more fun, potentially? So I started out I prototyped this very early version of the infrared grid technology that we're using now in the P3. I had it. There's still a YouTube video showing me testing the first version of this.
Nice.
It's this small. I think it's a 17-inch LCD. Built this technology over it, and you can watch a dot follow the position of the ball, and the resolution is very bad, so the dot's kind of going back and forth as the ball's going up a path. But it showed that the concept would work with some software algorithms to tune that jumping dot. We could track the ball pretty well, and that turned into the lower portion of a playfield that this friend and I, Les Pitt, he still works for us now. He's one of the mechanical guys on our team. We built this concept into a machine. We threw together some upper playfield concepts and had this fully playable pinball machine with that idea of a ball tracking lower playfield with dynamic content.
That's amazing. All right, before I ask you any more questions, let's show folks the video of what the P3 is. And for those of you listening at home, it's narrated too, so you'll be able to hear what's going on.
Multimorphic presents a revolutionary new pinball platform. Introducing the P3. It's time for pinball to evolve. Our modular design and interactive screen allows for endless gameplay possibilities. Quickly swap in playfields from new game kits that cost a fraction of the price of traditional machines. Every module can be swapped in seconds to expand gameplay capabilities and minimize downtime, so you can get back to what's important, playing your collection of games. With our magnetic artwork system, you can swap in game-specific artwork packages, promote your business brand, or personalize your machine for the ultimate game room centerpiece. Come join the revolution that will change pinball forever. It's time for pinball to evolve.
All right. So Jerry's seen that one a few times.
Steven Silver, the guy who wrote that or made that video, just said, "Good video."
Ah, there he is.
Self-promotion is the best.
It's a way to go. So good job, Steven.
Thanks, Steven.
So that gives kind of an overview of the platform as a whole. But you were just saying that the first P3 didn't have the modularity built in.
No, the first prototype, we built it just to show off a couple things. One is this lower portion of the playfield with dynamic graphics and ball tracking and interactivity. We also had this idea that once we could track the ball over a dynamic display, we could implement physical versions of old video games. So think of, like, I don't know, Space Invaders, where you have a bunch of aliens coming down towards you and you fire bullets at it. Nice. Well, now this physical pinball can be a bullet, and you can take this pinball, shoot it up the screen, and blow away these aliens. But the problem was with just the idea of an early prototype where you have a screen and physical stuff at the top is in Space Invaders you shoot a bullet and the bullet goes away. It goes off the top of the screen. But in pinball, the ball's going to ricochet around and it's going to come back down and it's going to blow up more aliens, and that doesn't make any sense at all. So we came up with this idea to put these physical mechanisms in the playfield. We call them the walls and scoops, and they're individual 6 controllable wall targets, 6 controllable scoop targets, and these things can come up or go down in whatever way we want to either accept the ball. So in this idea of Space Invaders, we'd lift up all the scoops, all 6 scoops, to totally block off the upper playfield, and every shot you take will go into the scoop, so the bullet will disappear after it goes up the screen. And then another ball will get fed to the flipper, you'll shoot it again, and you can just have this, repetitive gameplay where you get more ammunition from the system and then shoot them at the targets. Well, what about games like Breakout or Arkanoid? These are games where you want the ball to ricochet around, but you still don't want it to go off the screen and do some stuff and then come back onto the screen. That doesn't make any sense. So the 6 wall targets in front of these scoops, they pop up too, so you can totally block off the upper portion of the playfield again, but without having the machine eat the ball. So now you shoot it up. In a game like Breakout, you lift the walls, you shoot it up, it hits the walls, it ricochets back down. It does exactly what a ball would do in the virtual room of a Breakout type game. So the combination of walls and scoops, it's a complicated mech because you got 12 individually controllable things, and we can light them all up with RGB lights, and we can do all these things. It's a complex mech, but it totally makes the platform viable because it allows you to do a lot of different things on the LCD, but then open up paths to a physical upper playfield.
Nice. So talk about a pinball machine as a platform. When I think about P3, it reminds me of a video game console, but for real physical pinball. Was that kind of the concept going into this?
It wasn't. So we didn't come out right from the chute with this modular physical platform. We wanted to do these virtual interactions with the lower portion of the playfield, walls and scoops in the middle portion of the playfield, and some kind of a layout at the top portion. And as we developed it, we're thinking, well, this thing in the lower 2/3 of the playfield, the LCD and the wall scoops, that's not enough to make a machine interesting. It's got some cool features, but we don't want this to be a video game gimmick. We don't want this to be a recreation of just video games with physical ball. We're pinball people. The reason we got into this is because we like pinball games. I had 11 machines in my house at one point, and I liked every one of them. And I wanted that physical experience. So I didn't want to be able to change up the lower portion and be stuck with a particular upper playfield portion. So we came up with this idea to make the entire upper third of the playfield a physical module that you could pull out of the machine, replace it with any kind of other physical shot layout, and totally change up the machine. Totally change up your shot layouts, your gameplay styles, your rules, and everything else associated with the thing.
So describe the process of doing that, because I think for a lot of folks, it's you think of, well, I used to have a Revenge for Mars here, and one of the features of that was you pull the play field out, and you could swap in Star Wars Episode 1 and then the platform died and there weren't any more games. But you don't actually pull the whole playfield out on this to change games, right?
Right. So I was exposed to Pinball 2002, and I didn't really like it that much, mostly because in my mind, the upper playfield, which is where the dynamic graphics were, they had to darken it, and they had to use these reflections of light to create these virtual targets in front of cool physical toys, but they completely reduced the effectiveness, the meaning of those physical toys. And remember, in Revenge from Mars, you see these virtual targets in front of physical ramps, but you don't actually see the ramps anymore. It's all dark. Mm-hmm. So they took the physical experience of pinball and kind of turned it into a video game, where what I wanted to do was take physical pinball and enhance it, add things to the lower playfield where it's otherwise a painted piece of wood, but enhance the physical experience. You're still shooting at ramps and loops and things you can see in that upper playfield. You're shooting at toys or whatever that is, stand-up targets or drop targets or those things that you're familiar with and you want to be in a pinball machine, but we're just enhancing it with the virtual. So it was an iterative process. We took one playfield and we cut out the upper third and we dropped some stuff into it, and we realized we had to add support structures. We had to figure out a way to get a ball trough in there. We had to add a ton of things that hadn't been done before because traditional pinball machines don't need you to put a hole or fill up a hole in the back portion of the playfield. So it was an iterative process. We took our first prototype to the Texas Pinball Festival in 2012, got a lot of interest. We brought a new prototype to 2013. We took different prototypes to Pacific Pinball Expo, I think it was in California in 2013. We went to Pinball Expo in Chicago in 2013, and I think we had a different prototype almost at every one of those shows where we started to fine-tune what the upper playfield structure would be, how we would do the ball trough. Our original ball trough, which was always in the back of the playfield, it was able to kick out balls from two different positions. We actually took a mech from Congo, that mech that can fire balls in two different directions.
Left or right, yeah.
And we put that in there because it was a pre-built mech that we could buy and we could put in. And it allowed us to do launches from either side of the playfield. We built some prototype upper playfields and stuck it on top of that, and we started playing around with it. And then we got the idea, well, what if we could, it would be so much better if we could take balls from any position across the width of the upper playfield and launch them. Because a playfield designer, if we're going to go get people to design games for this machine, they're not going to want to be stuck with one of two launch positions. They're going to want to be able to fire balls out from anywhere. So we developed this idea of, we call it an infinity trough. It's a ball trough that spans the entire width of the upper playfield, and you can fire balls out of any position on it, and you can do a whole bunch of things that traditional pinball can't do. Because we can fire balls out of any position, we can literally launch 8 balls at the same time. We can fire balls to both flippers at the same time. We can alternate flippers really fast. Traditional pinball machines, you need to wait for another ball to get staged into the shooter lane. If you have an auto plunger, it can fire them out, but you can only do one at a time. We can do cool things with this infinity ball trough. Yeah. So that grew out of it. We iterated. We continued to iterate, and eventually we hired a mechanical engineer. His name is Spicy Taco Muncher.
Oh yeah, he's been hanging out in chat. He's got an amazing name, by the way.
So he helped us take these concepts, turn them into well thought out, well engineered mechanical designs. The flipper assembly, which we haven't talked about, our floating flipper assembly.
I got some pictures of those. We can pull that up.
Cool. That was actually one of the original things we had to figure out in order to get the ball tracking and the LCD to work, because when you drill a hole through an LCD to mount traditional flippers, the LCDs don't normally like that.
They don't like that, no. So this is a photo of the flipper mech, and so it's suspended on a piece of like plexiglass.
Yep, polycarbonate.
A polycarbonate above the playfield, and then there's an arm that kind of reaches down underneath the apron, the traditional apron area where the coils are, right? Mm-hmm.
So when people look at this thing, they think it's totally different, and they don't trust the fact, or originally they didn't trust the fact that the flippers would be solid and stable. But in reality, this flipper mech is almost identical to a traditional flipper mech. We just took the levers that are connected to a traditional flipper bat into a coil, changed the shape of them a little bit, and instead of them being under the playfield, they're on top of the playfield. But otherwise, it's almost an identical mechanism. We iterated 3 or 4 times on that as well. We iterated on the slingshots, which are almost the exact same thing. There's a lever going to a slingshot bat, which gets pulled by a coil on, if you're looking at that plate, you can see there's a red plate and a black plate. That's where the coils are. So there's 2 coils on each of those plates, one for the flipper, one for the slingshot. But everything's floating over the surface of the screen so that we can use infrared light underneath those, but still above the surface of the playfield to capture the ball as it's rolling around.
So there's a photo of the infrared LEDs, right?
Yep, so each one of those is an infrared receiver, and then there's smaller infrared emitters in between them. But yeah, we're creating this grid of infrared light. The ball rolls around it. We can figure out exactly where the ball is. We can track multiple balls. We can do all kinds of neat things. But if physical mechanisms were coming up through the playfield, they'd block that light, and you wouldn't be able to track the ball. So the entire front two-thirds of the playfield, the physical things are floating above the surface. Nothing touches that surface.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, and I should have expected it, but I didn't like the out lane area or below the in lanes. That's all tracked too. So on Lexi and on Cosmic Kart Racing, there's like your traditional rollovers. You can collect them on the out lanes and everything too. It's pretty cool.
So we have side targets on these things. Traditional games often have targets on the side of the playfield a little bit of the ways up from the flipper. And our original prototype had physical switches there that they were kind of button switches. They weren't stand-up targets because we couldn't go through the LCD, but they were button switches. The ball would hit them and activate a switch. And then one day we realized we're tracking the way the ball moves across the playfield. We don't need physical switches there. Let's take out the physical switches, use software to tell us when we hit that target. And we took them out, and it worked pretty well. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. We had Dennis Nordman design our first game, Lexi Lightspeed. And
Dennis Nordman of Whitewater, Elvira, Scared Stiff. Yeah, he's got a great lineage of pinball machines.
He's made 26 something like that pinball machines. And whenever anyone asks me what he made, I always forget. But
those are the two that stand out in my mind.
Whitewater's the one that I own.
Yeah.
We saw him at Expo one year and had him look at the machine and asked him if he wanted to be involved, and he did. He used to ask us how we were going to get our physical switches for the inlanes and outlanes in there. And I tell him we're going to use ball tracking. We're going to use virtual switches. And at first, it didn't make any sense. He didn't get it because he's so used to using physical switches for everything. And then a week later, he would ask me again, how are we going to get physical switches down there? And I had a moment of fear. I'm like, oh crap, we can't get physical. Oh yeah, we're gonna use virtual switches. And it's this thing because it's so new. It was new to us too, and I kept forgetting the fact that we could do that myself. But eventually we all agreed, and we worked on the prototypes. We got those features working, and then we could turn them into games.
That's great. So talk to me about what's a typical day like for you.
Oh gosh.
As founder and president of a startup pinball company, what's that like?
Well, I should preface this by saying we are still the pure definition of a startup company. We've bootstrapped this company. We don't have big investors. We've built the company from the ground up. We started with 3 people, me, Les, and a friend, Brandon. And that was in 2012. We've taken prototypes to shows and gotten tons of volunteers to help us with software and mechanical and artwork and things. Over the years, we've hired a couple more people, but for the most part, we're still total passion play startup people trying to build a company and trying to build a new, exciting, technology-rich, different thing in this industry. So my typical day, I'll wear one of 10 different hats, and I'll probably swap them all back and forth throughout the day. But I develop hardware. I write some of the software. I've done a lot of the framework development. I manage all the teams. I do all the reviews with other people, of course, for whatever it is, game concepts or game designs, playfield layouts, artwork. I work with the artists to create dynamic content or the content that goes on the screen. I work with Rory, who's our game engine, game artist guy. He does a lot of the content for that. I go into the contract manufacturers almost every day and work with the floor guys to make sure they're building the machines correctly, or to work with them to teach them how to find problems and fix them before they get into final QA. I test every machine that goes out. I play test literally every P3 that goes out. I try to work with investors and marketing people, and it's everything that somebody would have to do to build a company. I do it, and the rest of the guys help out anywhere they can.
And then sometimes you fly to Buffalo to come on podcasts and stuff.
And
too.
I clean bathrooms and sweep floors and do all that stuff too. No, it's great to be here, actually. It's a great change of pace because it's neat to get out of the house, so to speak, every now and then and experience people enjoying the machine, which is cool. Thank you for having me.
It's a thrill to have you here. Who is building your pinball machines, by the way?
So we're working with a contract manufacturer, USTX Contract Services in Austin, Texas. They've started with us from the beginning, and they've hired a few people. We work with them very directly. We sit there on the production floor. TJ and Les and I are there almost every day of every week, helping them build. For the first 10 or 15 machines, we built them all ourselves by hand.
Nice.
We have to. We have to be able to build anything that you ever ask anybody else to do in any company. You should have done it before, because you need to know what their experience is going to be like. You need to know what questions they're going to need answered. I've built entire P3s myself. Not a whole machine at once, but I've built sub-assemblies while other people build other sub-assemblies, and then we swap and do all that stuff. TJ and Les have built more P3s than I have, but they work now every day. We have assembly instructions that they can follow, and we go in and look for problems or answer questions and help fix them. We box them up, we get them on the trucks, and we ship them out.
Awesome. So you recently hit a milestone. You fulfilled all your paid P3 pre-orders, which in this day and age in pinball, unfortunately, is quite an accomplishment.
It's such a minor thing for a startup that you sold the product or you shipped the product that people bought.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this industry, it's a little strange. We had pre-orders buy-in 4 and 5 years ago. They fully paid for P3s. We took it to shows. They liked it. They bought it. And we were offering pretty big incentives to get them to buy early, because we wanted to build up some name recognition. We wanted to be able to go to potential investors and say, look, we have people ready to buy this thing, or people who have paid to own it. So we built up a good pre-order base, and it's taken us about 9 or 10 months, but we finally shipped, 2 weeks ago, we shipped the last pre-ordered machine. And now we're looking to build up and grow and ramp up our volumes and get them to distributors and get them overseas. We have a few machines overseas, some of our early guys. We have some in Australia and New Zealand. We have a couple in the UK. We have a bunch in Canada. But we're looking to get machines into distributors' hands everywhere. And the only way to do that is to build up inventory. Because we can't go to a distributor and say, hey, go find buyers, and then maybe someday we'll build some machines for you and ship them. No, we can't. We have to build up machines. We have to have them in inventory. So if a distributor comes to us and says, hey, I have buyers for 10 machines, we can ship them in short order 10 machines.
Nice. So you have 2 distributors now?
We work with 2. We have a third who's out in California trying to sell games, more of a casual distributor, we call him. He's just a hobbyist who helps to sell games. But yeah, Rob Anthony, who goes to a lot of shows. We've worked with him for years and years. He distributed p-rocs back in the day too. He's been taking machines to shows and selling them, and we just signed up Pinball Star Amusements with Joe Newhart. He's excited about selling these machines as well. So we're excited to get a lot more volume out and to get machines to a lot more shows and to sign up more distributors and get them machines and to hit shows all across the world with P3s.
Yeah. So speaking of shows, the big Replay FX is happening this week.
That's this weekend.
And you're going to be able to play the P3 there, right?
Yep. We shipped Joe a machine last week. We signed him up last week. We shipped him a machine. He's taken 3 Replay FX.
Nice.
And it'll be there.
Can't wait to see everybody playing it, and hope if you're there and you got questions about the game, and I'm not playing in the tournament, hit me up. I'll give you some tips. I've been playing it like crazy. So let's see. So let's kind of dig into Lexi Lightspeed, because the system has a lot of games, and we can talk about those games more. But for the traditional like pinball enthusiasts, the folks who have a lineup of games in their house, Lexi Lightspeed right now is the game that they're going to be most interested in, I think.
Right. So we came out with this platform, and we can do so many things with it. We can do these video game recreation things I talked about, or we can do totally traditional pinball layouts. And what I wanted to do coming into this as a pinball enthusiast into the pinball market was develop a game that was largely traditional. So Lexi Lightspeed, that's the reason we got Dennis to help design it. He's a traditional pinball designer. We use a few virtual interactions in a couple of the modes, but for the most part, Lexi, in fact, the main screen, when you start, we call it the map scene, which is a layout of the government facility and the swamplands that the game takes place in. It's a mostly traditional layout in the sense that there's really nothing dynamic on that map scene. Mm-hmm. Yes, we overlaid a ball trail to show people that the screen was, in fact, tracking the position of the ball. But there's nothing that the ball interacts with on that main scene. More or less, you have to start a mode which transitions into a fully different virtual environment to introduce all those virtual interactions. So Lexi Lightspeed is a game with 2 physical ramps in orbit. It's got 3 pop bumpers. It's got 12 stand-up targets. It's got just as many physical features as most pinball games. In fact, it's got an 8-ball physical ball lock, mm-hmm. which is a bit extreme,
but amazing.
A bit extreme. You can get a 9-ball multi-ball with that thing by getting an add-a-ball after you start the 8-ball. But it's a physical pinball game. It's intended to be traditional. It's intended to have rules that are similar to other games. It's a mode-based game. It's got 6 different modes. You got a multi-ball. You have some other objectives you need to accomplish throughout the course of gameplay, and then you get to a traditional wizard mode, which I think 2 people have seen that wizard mode.
I have not.
I've gotten to it twice. I've never beaten it.
Yeah, it's challenging, and it keeps me pushing the start button. That's a sign of a good game. It's like, I'll get it this time.
Yep.
And so I don't know where to begin on it. There's so much I like about it. So the 8-ball physical ball lock is awesome. It's mode based in that you can let's show this off. Let's show off the buttons. Where's my photos? So the buttons on the side of the cabinet, there's 3 on each side, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yes, so some of that's because we introduced all these video game kind of concepts into the platform. So there's a lot of things we can do, but we wanted to have multiple buttons so that we could give more variety or more control over some of the video aspects to players. So for example, in this game, we allow you to use, I think it's the lower button to change which mode is lit. Because we had an extra button, the white button up top is actually used for the lane change. Mm-hmm. So traditionally, you have one flipper button on each side of a machine, and that's it. And that button serves the purpose of flipping your flippers, but it also does everything else you need to use a button for, which is lane change. If you light the in lane or out lane, you can rotate them generally with a flipper button. Well, we have extra buttons. So why would you want to use the same button to do 2 different functions that are completely unrelated functions in a game, flipping versus rotating a light, when you have 2 buttons and you control them individually? So we still have a software option. You can, if you really want to, go back and set your flipper buttons to control both the flippers and to do the lane change. But I personally like having the lane change on the second button. And now it's kind of weird when I go play a traditional game, I'm reaching for that second button to try to do the lane change, and it's not there and doesn't work.
Yeah, I've found myself really getting into that as like a more advanced, as somebody who's been playing pinball for like 5 years pretty seriously. It's a nice extra challenge.
Did you say 5 years is advanced? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. He just put me in my place, everybody. I'm going to need some ointment for that sick burn. But as somebody who's played a lot of pinball, it's nice to have something extra to do, a little more advanced technique to kind of go for to change your lanes. It makes you stop and think. You don't just get into kind of autopilot when you're playing pinball. You're like, oh no, I need to do this other thing, which I've been enjoying.
Pin Stadium asks if they flip at the same time. So the red flipper buttons are just like any normal flipper button, where you hit the red button and it flips the right side, or if you hit the left flipper button, it flips the left side. Interestingly, because we have other buttons, we can also do things like allow you to control both buttons from the same hand, or both flippers from the same hand. So we have a software setting, an operator setting you can go into, and you can set up the other button, the white button, to control the other flipper. So if you hit the red button, it's the right flipper. Say you're using your right hand. Mm-hmm. If you hit the red button, it's the right flipper. If you hit the white button, it's the left flipper. So you can be sitting there talking on the phone and playing pinball and actually controlling both flippers, or drinking your drink, or whatever it is.
Getting your hot social media tweets out and stuff.
That's right. And it's good for handicapped people too, of course. But yeah, we can do, because we have multiple buttons, we can do new things.
And you can actually swap those button modules out too, right?
Yep, good point. That's actually the reason they're modules. They extend out of the cabinet. Well, that's one of the reasons. We can take those out. If you wanted to put in a game with some kind of a joystick or directional pad, or you want to do something with 5 buttons instead of 3, we have complete banks from our switchboard. So we have 8 wires going to each button box. So if we want to implement something more advanced, we can do that. I was thinking maybe a motorcycle game or a racing game would actually have handholds or a steering wheel or something that you could mount over those games. We can do anything.
I always wanted. Have you ever played the Johnny Mnemonic video mode, where it's got like the little dots on the screen and you got to move up, down, left, right with the buttons on the side?
Yep.
I always thought it would be cool if there was actually like a joystick you could use for that.
That would be cool.
That's what we need.
Cool. So directional pads on the button boxes is something we can do. We can put USB sticks or things on the button boxes, and you can hook up a game controller or something and play your physical pinball machine with a video game controller or something. I mean, there's so much we can do. The trick for us all along has been, we take this super versatile platform, but we need to create things that people like and are fun to play and people can relate to. I mean, we can go crazy right off the bat and no one will buy it because it doesn't make any sense to them. Or we can start simple, relatively simple in quotes, and build a semi-traditional game like Lexi and then build off of it from there. And that's how we started. And I still want to do some pretty crazy things. And in fact, we being the company assume that other people are going to develop games for this that we never thought of. They're going to come up with concepts that we haven't even thought of. They're going to do things that are awesome that we didn't think about before. And oh, by the way, they can do that because we release a development kit for third parties to create games for the system.
Is that out yet, or is it coming out?
The kit has been shipped in early release state to about 30 developers so far. We've already gotten people emailing us beta code of their developed games. It will be publicly released when we release our next version of all of the game software, because we've done some framework things. So we're resyncing that, and it'll be out in probably 4, 5, or 6 weeks.
That's awesome. 30 developers. That's impressive. And that's not even fully released yet. So
yeah, and who knows?
There's some excitement for the platform, right?
Yeah, a lot of people are interested. There's a lot of people who do video games for a living or write games for the iPhone or Android platforms for a living, and they see this cool new platform with a new interface, which is physical pinball. It's a physical pinball. That physical ball and the buttons are an interface to a game. Mm-hmm. And they see the potential to do something different and cool and interesting. And I mean, I don't know how many of those 30 people will actually make games, but there's a lot of interest in the thing. And just like anything, we sell a lot of p-rocs to people who have never built a game. They get excited about it and they start putting a machine together, and then they realize, oh crap, this is a ton of work. By the way, if you see someone like Scott Denisi or Josh Kugler or any of the guys who are making custom machines, they deserve a lot of credit, because starting with an idea and taking a machine, you have to do so much to build a pinball machine. That it's amazing that there's so many homebrew games that have gotten to completion.
Yeah. So RLM asks, is that done around Skeleton Game?
So Skeleton Game is a Python-based framework that people use for the p-roc. And for the P3, we developed an offshoot of the original framework that Skeleton Game is based on. It's called p-roc Game. We ported that to C#, and we use that with the Unity game engine. Unity Game Engine is a game framework that I think it's used for about 75% of the shipping video games in the world.
Oh, wow.
All the different video game consoles, the developers build games using the Unity platform. So we integrated that into our pinball control framework, and combining those, and then we added a lot of features for doing operator settings and game structure, so you can start a game and track balls and track players. And then we added a ton more features like our profile system and a lot of other things, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a bit.
Yeah.
And that's what people are using to make games.
Awesome. So getting back to Lexi Lightspeed a little bit more. So we have Dennis Norman on design. We know he's an awesome traditional pinball designer. I had forgotten that David Thiel had done the sound for it.
David Thiel I met at the Seattle show one year. He stepped into my seminar and he listened to it and he got really interested. We sat down after the seminar for about an hour and he was super excited. He said he wanted to be a part of it. So he did all the sound for Lexi, and he started out helping us with some sound for some of the early the mini games that we were doing too.
Yeah, it was cool because I posted the video on YouTube and then David commented. Yeah, and
Oh,
he watches
yeah.
our stuff every once in a while, but he posted it on Facebook. He's like, "This is the first time I was ever really able to hear it all together because he developed the sound without actually having a machine, right?"
That's right. We didn't have machines to ship since we were in early startup mode. We had basically 1 or 2 prototype machines, and all the machines we had were kind of bubble gum and duct tape together, and we couldn't ship a machine across the country and give it to anyone without us being there to babysit it and fix it when it went down. So he developed what we do have using this Unity platform that we're using. It has a full simulator. So we would send David code and he would run it on his computer, and you can even go into the framework and drag the ball around on the screen, and it mimics what it would do on a playfield. So he could activate every single feature as if he were playing a physical game, and hear his sound calls get queued up and hear the music play. So he could basically recreate the system, but he couldn't hear how his sounds sounded against the physical noises that a pinball machine creates.
For sure. So another question from chat: will the playfield wear in the P3?
Will the playfield wear? So the main playfield surface over the LCD is a piece of polycarbonate, which is a plastic. It's a very durable, scratch resistant. It'll still scratch if you really try to scratch it, but it's a scratch resistant material. We've had the same piece of Lexan in our prototypes forever, since the early days, and it develops some smudges or scuffs or scratches. The thing is, because you have a bright LCD underneath it, you don't see any of it. We'll pull this thing out and look at it, and it's scratched pretty badly. You stick it back in the machine, and no one can even tell it's got any issues. But the whole thing's modular. So that piece of Lexan literally is a rectangular piece of plastic that you can just slide out the front of the machine. You have a picture. Yeah, that's a good picture. So that's the flipper assembly coming out of the front of the machine. You can see below that flipper assembly, there's a front door that's swiveled down in the picture. That swivels up to create the front of the chassis. But when that swivels down, you can pull out that flipper assembly, and right below that is that rectangular piece of plastic. It literally just slides out of the machine right under that flipper assembly. So if your rectangular piece of plastic gets scratched or damaged or scuffed or whatever, just pull it out, go to your plastic supplier down the street, pay $30, get a new sheet, slide it right back in, and you're good to go.
Easiest playfield swap you'll ever do.
Easiest featureless playfield swap you'll ever do, yes.
Exactly. Awesome. So yeah, if you guys got questions in chat, keep them coming. I'll keep pulling them out, and we want to make sure any questions you got about this platform get answered tonight.
Yeah, if you're really good, of course you can sand it, or I've seen people take super deep gouges out of plastic by going through various layers of wet and dry sanding. But the reality is, it's a $30 piece of plastic. Just go buy a new one.
By the time you spend all that money on polish and sanding and everything, you may as well just get a new piece. So how hard is it to change the playfield up top?
The upper playfield module takes me about 30 seconds. So the most of the time actually is opening up the machine, taking out the playfield glass, which is standard. It slides out of the machine. You lift the playfield frame up you lift it up and pull it out into service position. And then there's 4 connectors in the back. You have a picture of that too, I believe. There's 4 connectors in the back of the playfield.
We're getting there.
There it is. That connects the upper playfield module to the system. You disconnect those 4 connectors, and then there's 2 latches on the front of the upper module. You disconnect those latches, and then literally the playfield slides straight out vertically of the machine. So once you get the playfield glass off, it takes about 30 seconds to take the playfield out, put a new one in, put it back together, and boot up.
Yeah. The first time I did it, it took me like 10 minutes, and that's because I was watching your video on how to do it while I was doing it. Okay. I was like, I don't want to mess this up. I'm going to make it. This isn't my game. They're just loaning it to me.
Yep.
I was being extra careful, and now even with like my camera gear all around it, I can get it done in like 5 minutes or less.
So
it's opening it from start to finish, opening the game and everything.
Like everything else, the machine is new. So swapping a playfield, it takes a little while to get used to. Lifting the playfield up into service position, this thing's a beast. That's that the whole machine weighs about 330 pounds, where traditional ones weigh between 250 and 275. We just have a lot of stuff. We have a full LCD on that playfield and the wall scoop assembly and all that heavy stuff. It takes a little while to get used to lifting that playfield up into service position, but once you get it down, Then it's super easy.
Yeah, and it's very well engineered in that, like, you can't really mess it up. It just takes some getting used to, like, oh, this is really heavy, I got to pull on it, but then it just kind of, like, sets in the next slot, like, where you needed to get it to rest on the lockdown bar, and once it's there, you can pull it out more or put it all the way up.
Yeah, and we know when people unbox it for the first time, it's going to be super intimidating, so we developed a bunch of videos that people can hopefully watch before they get the machine to kind of make it a little less mysterious when they get it and help them along. There are physical things that you won't understand how to do if you just look at the machine, but the videos help guide people through that.
I've asked about if the top glass has a diffuser in the previous stream. So yeah, it's being tracked with infrared sensors. That's how it tracks the ball, right?
Oh yeah, so there's an array of infrared light that shines just above the playfield surface, and the ball breaks that light.
Yeah. So that's how it keeps track of where it is on the screen. It's not a touch screen or anything like that.
The monitor is an industrial off-the-shelf high-def LCD. The plastic over top of that, like we said, is a straight-up rectangular piece of polycarbonate. Then you got the infrared grid on top of that. And then the playfield glass, the thing you slide into the cabinet, is the same as any other playfield glass, exact same size. If you need a new sheet, you just go to your glass supplier or go to a pinball glass supplier and get a standard sheet of playfield glass. It slides right in.
Yeah, I've been swapping in my my Invisiglass for the stream, so to make it look extra.
That explains that sticker in the corner.
Is the upper playfield clear coated wood? What's the surface of the upper playfield?
So we've gone back and forth on that. Right now, the upper playfields are decaled. So it's the same wood, Baltic birch, that's used on traditional playfields. When we have a decal on top of that, and then we put the assemblies on that. We've looked into clear coating and going, full hardcore pinball clear coated playfields, and that would add a bit of cost to each playfield. And our goal is to keep the upper playfield modules fairly inexpensive, so you can do swaps for a couple grand instead of $3 or $4 or $5,000.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep our costs in line, and to do that, we've stuck with wood and decals for now.
Nice. Is Pin Stadium wants to know if VR is possible?
Is VR so in the sense that anything else is augmented reality capable? If you wanted to wear glasses, but yeah, we have this development kit. If somebody wants to develop code that ties into a set of VR or AR glasses, then it's just software at that point. It doesn't matter. We've talked about doing things like 3D displays, like glasses-free 3D, so you could play pinball and you could actually have what look like 3D objects or characters jumping out of the screen.
Oh, neat.
And that's possible with faster refresh display technology running both frames, alternating. There's a lot of technical gobbledygook that you'd have to get through to implement it. But for now, like everything else, we have to pick a set of features that we can get out, that we can develop, that'll interest people. So again, there's a ton of things we can do, and there's a ton of things we hope to do, and there's a ton of things we hope others will do with the platform. But not yet.
So I don't know if this is leading to potential competitive pinball interference, but if you pointed an IR camera at the machine playfield, would it mess up with the tracking?
You go when the P3, when Lexi Lightspeed is in Bat City Open, Jesse, you'll love me for this. Just shine an infrared remote control and screw up your competitors. No, actually, it doesn't work. We've covered the IR grid with physical things to block external IR so that it's more difficult to screw up the grid. You can try it, but it probably won't work.
Okay, so nice try, chat room. It's not happening.
Cheaters.
Cheaters. All right, so we got David Thiel on sound. He's done Dialed In and Tron, and he's got a all the way back to like Time Machine and Laser War.
He's got a huge resume of video games too. He's done.
Oh, that's right. He did Q*bert, and
he's done a ton of games.
What's the one? Reactor. He's got really awesome sound from the 80s video game. So yeah, amazing sound work in Lexi Lightspeed. Check out the video that we've been doing direct audio capture of that. And
he had actually a lot of input into our software system to allow him to do the features that he knew were necessary, doing audio ducking.
Ooh, nice.
When you have sound effects playing over music or whatever. He obviously has the knowledge and the experience, so he helped us put features into our software system to allow him to develop games the way they need to be developed.
Nice. And then I didn't realize this until we were streaming the one night and you were in chat, but you actually coded this game, right?
I've coded a few games. I mean, I studied computer engineering in school because I like doing software and hardware design. So, again, as a very slim startup, we all wear a lot of hats, and I developed a lot of the code. I did do a lot of the logic code, a lot of the game rules, a lot of the gameplay code for Lexi. Then we have BJ Wilson, who did all of the graphical scripting. So we have an artist, Rory, who created all the graphical assets. Then in Unity, you usually script those assets. So you put a script on an object, and then that will tell the object how to move around the screen or what to do when it interacts with another object. And BJ did all of the graphical scripting, and then I did all the rules logic to implement that game.
Nice. It's impressive. So is this your first pinball machine that you've coded, or have you done others?
It is not. So when I developed the p-roc, actually even before that, when I graduated college, I had this is going way back, but I went to work for National Instruments straight out of school. National Instruments does digital I/O technology, basically to allow engineers to do test and measurement features without having to be programming experts and things. So they developed a lot of the tools that engineers can use to do data analysis and things and digital inputs and outputs on their computers. So I got a hold of one of the digital I/O boards. I ripped apart a Tri-Zone pinball machine.
Oh, yeah? Uh-huh.
And I connected it to this digital I/O board, put it into the computer, and I wrote a complete game for Tri-Zone using National Instruments LabVIEW graphical programming language. So I was literally dragging and dropping graphical versions of software code. For loops were a physical circle or a square that you would draw, and then you would put stuff inside it to say what to do in the loop.
It sounds like programming I could probably do.
It was a graphical. You still had to have the programming constructs or the understanding of them, but it was a neat project. I did it for fun. It lasted for. I got it running. I kept the machine for about a year, and then I kind of grew out of it because it was a pretty simple layout, and I was more into the 90s DMD era. Mm-hmm. But I did that. After developing the p-roc, I wrote game code to show people how to write game code for the p-roc so they would buy it and use it. So I wrote a complete game for Judge Dredd. We called it JD.
Okay.
And it's a complete new rule set that's actually still available. It's open source. It's online. You can go buy a p-roc and put JD on your computer. We got a guy to do sounds for it and music for it, and it's a complete second rule set for the Judge Dredd.
All right, so I'm going to stop you there because I've owned Judge Dredd a couple times.
Okay.
What are some of the rules that you implemented?
Oh, geez, that was a long time ago. We did complete new. We kept it mode based,
okay.
so it was still a bunch of modes, but we did new modes for everything. We had the concept where if you complete 2 modes, you got to play in a little mini game. We did a whole new wizard mode. I can't remember all the details, but
now I want to get a Judge Dredd again and put that on.
I don't know. Buy a p-roc and download the code. You can play it.
Where can somebody buy one of those?
p-roc, multimorphic.com.
There you go.
To look at the P3, to look at all of our boards. We actually, every single PCB that we've developed that we use in the P3, which is now p-rocs and driver boards and switch boards and LED boards and opto boards and trough boards, and everything that we use in the P3 is available for anybody else to buy online. So if you need something for your machine, we have it.
Multimorphic.com. All right, so after you did JD, what was next?
So after JD, I'm thinking back. Then it was Lexi. After JD, I got heavily into the driver board development and then the P3 development and then built Lexi. Actually, no, that's not true. I built some mini games for the P3. I wrote the first version of Rocks, the asteroid-like game. Yes. I wrote the first version of the really exciting one that people pay money to see on this stream.
That has to be Barnyard.
I wrote the first version of Barnyard. I wrote a game called, we called it Whack-a-Hole. Yeah, it sounds great without any description, doesn't it?
No context needed on that one, no.
It was a game that used the scoops. So it would pop up a random scoop, you'd hit it, and then it would pop up a different random scoop and you'd hit it. Basically whack-a-mole, but with a physical pinball and scoops that were popping up whack-a-hole. Sure. And then after we got into development of the actual commercial P3 platform like Lightspeed, that's when I wrote that.
Cool. So we got a question from Mr. Jojo. He said, He said C#. How does he deal with dynamic memory management? We're getting real nerdy here.
Oh, gosh.
Allocate everything ahead of time.
No, we don't have to allocate anything ahead of time because the framework does all that for us. Of course, yes, it is C#. We are doing strongly typed development where we're defining integers and booleans and strings. This is very geeky technical stuff.
A small portion of our audience is really appreciating it.
So we declare everything, of course. It's standard. It's standard programming constructs. It's object-oriented, so we have a lot of higher-level constructs built into it. But, yeah, we don't have to worry about allocations. It handles all of the allocations dynamically for your graphics and your audio and your physical or your virtual data. So,
all right, I have no follow-up questions to that. All right, so let's talk about some of the gameplay features in Lexi Lightspeed. So I was surprised to see there's a co-op mode in there, right?
There is a co-op mode. So a long time ago, we came up with this concept for player profiles. So we developed this functionality into the framework where you can log into the machine. You can put in your name, and the first feature we developed for it is when you log in, you can change your profile player settings. So pinball games have all these operator settings. You can set the number of, I don't know, how long ball save lasts, or how many times you have to hit a ramp to start a mode, or whether it's easy or medium or hard, or you have these features that you can change. Well, if you're a good player, you might want the machine set difficult, and if you're a beginner player, you might want the machine set easy. And you can't allow, or traditional games, you can't walk up to a machine with two different skill sets and play a two-player game, because you have to pick which settings you want it to be.
Sure.
So we developed this profile system where you can log into the machine and you can change your settings. So I could set it up because I know the rules very well, and I can hit the shots because I've played this game forever while developing the code. I might set it up to be difficult. I might set it up so I have to kill 8 aliens instead of 2, or I have to hit this ramp 4 times to start a mode instead of 1, or whatever. There's literally 60 or 70 different settings in Lexi that you can change to make it harder or easier. And then I could play against somebody else who steps up to it for the first time and wants to set it up in an easier mode so they can progress farther through the game. So while doing these profiles, we said, hey, well, what if we allow multiple people to sign in under the same profile? How's the system going to react?
Okay.
Well, with a little bit of tweaking, the way it reacts is it combines your progress. So if you both log in as player Joe, player 1 as Joe plays through a mode or accomplishes something, kills a couple aliens, or plays a multi-ball and gets a few jackpots or whatever, player 2 then steps up as Joe, and the system knows that Joe just did all these things and Joe's now playing again, so it is a co-op mode. But farther, it's a co-op mode where you can do any different combination you want. So you can have one guy play as Joe and 3 guys play as Bob. And then you've got a 3-person versus 1-person game, or 2 versus 2, or whatever you want to do. The original demo video, which I found the other day, it's about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, I think I watched it.
Where I was explaining how the profile system works. The example I used was kids and dad. So you have 3 kids who are kind of beginner pinball players. They step to the machine. You set it pretty easy, but you let them all play together in a cooperative way against their dad, who's playing different rules and making it more challenging for himself. And it gives people a way to play competitively, even if their skills aren't the same.
Question from chat. Tripperdack asks, is the machine connected to the internet? Yes, it is.
The machine is connected to the internet. The functionality we've implemented so far is very light. We have to get some of the physical games out and get some of the features developed. But over time, we are planning to implement things like online updating of software. Of course, that's a simple one, or a straightforward one. We want to do things like score tracking, posting your scores. We want to do things like servicing, identifying and telling operators when something's broken. It can notify them in an email or text them or do something. But we've also demonstrated already a game like Heads Up or Cosmic Kart Racing can do multiplayer network-connected gaming. So 2 players or 4 players in the case of Cosmic Kart Racing on 4 different machines can connect their machines together and play a racing game against other people.
That's awesome. Buffalo ATX says he wants to go head-to-head against me in Barnyard. We need to get online multiplayer Barnyard action.
Okay, that is more than I wanted to know about Jesse, but all right.
Add it to the feature list. Yeah, so online play, you're going to be able to do stuff like, battle and Cosmic Kart Racing, which, tune in tomorrow night, you're going to see the first stream of it right here on Buffalo Pinball. If you're listening to the podcast, go on our YouTube channel and check it out there.
Yeah, we've done a lot of new things in Cosmic Kart Racing, too, that have never been done before. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, we'll get into that after we finish digging into Lexi Lightspeed. Anything else we should know about Lexi? Like from, I'm a traditional pinball player. I like my machines with wooden play fields. Why should I've heard people say, oh, it's like Pinball 2000. It's not like Pinball 2000. Sell me on Lexi Lightspeed as a traditional pinball player.
Lexi Lightspeed is exactly what you'll get. Okay, not exactly. Lexi Lightspeed is a very traditional game in the sense that the upper third part of the playfield is what you would get on most other traditional playfields. If you go play Medieval Madness or Tech from Mars, or honestly go through your game room and look at 80% of your games, you're going to see basically nothing on the lower two-thirds of your playfield. We have targets on the outsides. We have, like I said, the 12 stand-ups up top, 3 pops, 2 ramps, 8-ball multi-ball, or physical ball lock. We've got loops. We've got all the standard features of a traditional game. We've got modes. We've got targets. We've got the in-lane and out-lane icons. We've got ball save. We've got every single feature that you'd find in a traditional game, and it's implemented in the same way as a traditional game. It is a traditional game. What we do is we enhance it in some of the modes with some virtual interactions. But what's interesting about how we do those virtual interactions is you can play the game if you completely ignore the virtual.
Okay.
Because what the virtual is doing is it's defining the story of the ball moving from the flipper up into a physical shot.
Okay.
It's giving you a reason to shoot a physical shot. If there's a target, a virtual target, what's a good mode? Like
Are we drinking the beers?
The beer mode's perfect because the beer mugs are lined up with physical shots from the flipper. So the idea is you're shooting physical shots just like you would in any pinball mode, but we've given you a reason to shoot that physical shot because you're trying to hit the mug that's lined up right in front of it. And then you hit the mug, the ball goes up the ramp or whatever. We fill up the mug with beer or some child-friendly root beer thing.
Right.
And then you hit it again. So basically it's telling you to hit the ramp twice.
Mm-hmm.
But you're actually trying to hit the beer mug.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it is a physical game. It's a traditional game. We just enhance that experience with some virtual interactions and some, we call it dynamic artwork.
Yep. And I really like the warehouse mode where you're that is the most video gamey mode to me because you're in this the wall scoops come up and then you're in this room in a warehouse and there's crates on the screen and you got to bash the crates and find the parts to repair your ship and then you got to exit the room and go into the next room. That mode's really cool.
So one interesting thing about that mode, on a traditional pinball game, you have 7 or 8 or 6 or however many physical shots that are lined up on the upper portion of the playfield. And your entire playing time on that game, you're trying to hit one of 8 shots.
Right.
Whatever it is. You're always aiming at one of 8 shots. If you put virtual targets lower, we can still force you to hit physical shots, but we call it infinite shot angles. Because if we put a virtual target lower than an outer orbit shot would be, you're going to try to shoot, maybe you're going to try to shoot into the opposite slingshot because that's where the virtual target are. Mm-hmm. We can force you to shoot angles that you wouldn't normally shoot. We can put a virtual target in the opposite in-lane to force you to try to shoot up the opposite in-lane. We can do this because we can create targets, virtual targets, anywhere on the playing surface we want. And what's interesting about watching seasoned players play these games are it forces them to lose control of the ball, which is good sometimes and it's bad sometimes. But we do it in such a way that we mix in very traditional modes where they're just shooting ramps or loops or whatever with these other modes that are shoot at these weird shot angles and force yourself to have to get that ball back under control.
All right, let's go through some of these pictures because there's some stuff in here I wanted to cover with you. So this is the art. Scott Gullix did the art, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
He's the guy who did Wrath of Olympus.
nice. And he did Dominoes too, right?
He did the first version of Dominoes.
Okay. I thought he was involved in that somehow. So this is your setup at Texas Pinball Festival with Cosmic Kart Racing. I threw this in here because I wanted to give an overall shot of the cabinet.
And tease you all.
Oh yeah. This is the overall playfield view of Lexi Lightspeed, so you can see very traditional looking game. It's got the 2 flippers, 2 slingshots. It's got the returns to both flippers on the wireforms. You can change all those wireforms though too, like if you want.
Yes,
it, right? So it doesn't always have to be returned into both inlanes.
If you
like
look
this.
real closely at that picture, you can see both wireforms on the outer sides of them have bolts that go into that top slot of the aluminum frame on the outside. So if you loosen up those 2 bolts, you can slide the wireforms out and you can replace them with anything else.
Right, so it frees up. You can have cross-platform wireforms and things like that on future games if they support it. We talked about the buttons. Let's talk about the side art and the magnetic cabinet you got going.
Yep, because if you have this multi-game capable platform, it doesn't make any sense to put a specific game theme on your cabinet and keep it like that forever. So we came up with, or we talked through the trade-offs of coming up with generic artwork that just define P3 multi-game system platform for pinball or whatever, but it would be boring and nobody would buy it because everybody wants cool artwork on their machines. So by making the cabinet magnetic or ferrous, we can stick magnets on there. And magnets, these are things that you drive down the street and you'll see cars and vans with magnets that they went to a print shop and got them printed and they stuck them on their machine. That's exactly what these are. If you have a P3 and you want to put your own artwork on your system, grab a drawing or make something and take it to your local print shop, ask them to print a car magnet in these dimensions, which will define these dimensions for you in our dev kit, and you can replace your artwork. So if it were in your home, if you play Lexi for a while or for a couple months or whatever, then you get a new game, you can totally swap the artwork out when you switch games. If it's on location and the location wants to upgrade to Cosmic Kart Racing or switch out to, I don't know, the Canon Lagoon Redemption style game or something, they can totally make their cabinet match the game by swapping that artwork out.
How do you keep the local hooligans from stealing the magnets?
We have, we call them magnet protectors.
Okay.
We have, they're an additional accessory that you can buy to put on top of the magnets. Basically, it's clear plastic that you screw into the cabinet on top of the magnets to protect people from walking away with your magnets.
you people are going to do it.
We have thought about that.
See, you guys have thought of everything. Let's pop back to the photos here. So that's our magnetic artwork. Talk. This is amazing to me. Talk to me about how you would work on flippers on this game.
Yes. So we have a saying that we like to use a lot, which is never take your soldering iron to your pinball machine. Take your pinball machine in parts to your soldering iron. So we've made this system very modular. This picture is showing the flipper assembly literally just slides out of the front of the machine. So if something happens to your flippers, a wire gets disconnected or a screw falls out or any number of things that happen to pinball machines because they're physical things, you literally just pull that flipper assembly out, take it to your workbench, or heck, take it to your living room and watch TV on your couch and grab a screwdriver or whatever you need and swap something out.
And it's just one single connector to get those out of there, and then it just slides out, right?
That's right. And below that, like we said, is the playfield plastic, and below the playfield plastic is the LCD, 32-inch LCD screen, literally just slides out the front of the machine.
That's awesome.
So if something happens to the screen or you want to upgrade it to a 4K display at some point, if we go that route, then you literally just slide that display out the front of the machine.
All right, what's next? The flippers we talked about, they hover above. Talk to me about the P3 pass that we've been seeing.
So the flippers are floating. They're tied to this plastic. We call it a base plate, which is actually on the top of it and not the bottom because they're floating down from that. But this entire plastic sheet is tied together and it's slid into the front of it. It's not bolted down into the cabinet. It's not tied into the frame structure. It's it slides in and out. So there's a little bit of vibration that it has. So when you flip a flipper, you're popping 48 volts or 70 volts or you're popping a lot of power into a solenoid, and it's creating a lot of force to flip that bat and shoot that 1-inch steel ball up your playfield. So it creates a lot of vibration, and if you get a little bit of vibration onto the ball guide that the ball is rolling down, and it can make the ball jump. That's a feature. That's a cool thing that you can use. In fact, you can figure out how to use that to stop the ball or to bump the ball or to pass the ball. It's a pretty cool thing. When you see people you watch good tournament players learn how to manipulate balls on a new machine. It's neat to see them experience the P3 and learn that they can do things like that, and then learn how to use it to their advantage.
Yeah,
while they're playing.
It reminds me of like a modern day tap pass, like you used to get on the Bally's back in the early '80s. Yeah. Except you do it actually higher up on the in lane, and then it knocks it over to the other flipper for you.
Pro tip: if you do it even higher, it'll hit the ball against the bottom of the slingshot, kill the momentum, and let you trap it.
Oh, boy. I like it. We're going to have this at the Buffalo Pinball Summer Open, so you guys are going to be able to try that out there if you want. All right, so this is where the playfield and the plastic slide out.
Yep,
the front of the machine.
Go back to that one.
Okay.
That caution sticker is on the metal piece that's holding the playfield LCD.
Okay.
And that's showing that entire LCD can slide out too.
Nice. All right, so these are the guts of the machine, right?
Yeah, that's the back box. That's an off-the-shelf Intel motherboard running an Intel Pentium processor, standard ATX power supply. Basically, the point is these are all off-the-shelf parts. The only thing really custom in the electronics packages is the control system, the pinball side of the control system, which is the p-roc board and it's the p3-roc board. The version of the p-roc that we developed for the p3, we call it the p3-roc, and it's also used for all the other custom machines that people are developing. But so it's got a video card in there, a standard NVIDIA video card to drive all the graphics. It's got an audio amp, it's got regular memory, and there's a Wi-Fi card in there as well.
Nice. This is the IR grid. We talked about this before. The walls and scoops.
That's the magic, is what
it is. The walls and scoops that we talked about before. Those are the connectors that, 4 connectors. One's a USB, one's an Ethernet cable, and then 2 kind of more traditional pinball connectors. You just pop those out, hang it over the side of the machine, swap the playfield in, and off you go. Yep. And that's the run through of the photos that I got. Anything else about Lexi we should talk about before we move on?
It's awesome.
It is
Lexi's awesome.
I love it.
I walk around shows these days and I go play a lot of games because I like to experience the variety and see what other people are doing and get inspiration from some of the older games and some of the newer games. And every time I walk around these floors now, I play the new games from the other manufacturers, and this is just me being biased or something. Maybe I am slightly biased. I don't know. Well, I do know. I'm very biased. I'm always missing something. I don't know if it's the virtual interactions, or I don't know if it's the some of the new gameplay features we've put in, but every time I go play a traditional game now, it's missing something. And I get that from the P3 now. I get that there's content in that dead space in other games. We're giving you more for your gameplay dollar. We're providing more stimulus. We're giving you more information. We're putting that information exactly where you need it. I don't think there was a picture showing this, but the scoreboard in Lexi is on that playfield LCD. It's right below your flippers. And when you're playing a pinball game, there you go. You can see there's a black box at the very bottom of that picture. You can see the top of the words free play. But that's where we put the score and your status and your icons showing what you've accomplished during the game. That's where we put that while you're playing. So when you're playing a pinball machine, what do you look at?
You look at this at the playfield.
You look at the flippers because you're trying to keep the ball in play. You're not looking at the back box because there's nothing to do up there. So by putting the information down there right where you're looking naturally when you're playing, you can get a sense for everything you need to know without taking your eyes off the ball, so to speak. So that's one thing we can do. We've had a couple people say they like having the score in the back box because if you're watching somebody else play, It's helpful in a more social environment, and that makes a ton of sense. And oh, by the way, we will have a back box display for the P3 that's in development now.
Nice.
So then we can put it. We can still keep the score while you're playing below the flippers, but we can duplicate it or put more content or different content up top. So that's pretty much it. Lexi's a traditional game with some new stuff to help you while you play with the score in the right location and some cool new features.
All right, so let's talk about the other games currently available for the P3. We got stuff like Barnyard and Rocks. Talk to us about that, and why do I want all these different games on my one pinball machine? Yeah,
so the P3 is a platform machine, and the reason that's important to understand is because when you go and spend $6 or $7 or $10 or $12 or $13,000 for a pinball game, a traditional one, you spend that money, you take up a spot in your house. Takes up, a 4x2 foot area that you're never going to get back for anything, because once you buy a pinball machine, it might change what it looks like because the theme changes when you swap it out, but that spot is now a pinball machine forever.
Yep.
So you can spend all that money, take up that space, or you can go invest in a platform machine. And it's the same thing that happened in the video game world, right? People used to buy stand-up Donkey Kongs and Pac-Mans and other video games, and then someone went and invented a video game console. And back in the day, I think my first one was an Atari 2600, and then
same here.
Kind of grew up with Nintendo, and now I have a Wii. Mm-hmm. But you buy this console, you pay more money than a regular game for the console, but then you fill it up with much less expensive game content. You buy your games and you fill it up, and you're not taking up any more space in your house. You're not spending a ton more money, and you're creating this huge game library. So that's what we've done for the pinball industry. We've created this platform machine for physical pinball, real ball, real flippers, real physical things. We've allowed you to take up one spot in your house. We've made it so that you only have to spend that big chunk of money once. And yes, the P3 is expensive. Yes, all new pinball machines are expensive. Some of them are $6K, some of them are $13 or $14K.
Now, how much is the P3?
The P3 is just under $10K. Right now it's $99.95. It comes with Lexi Lightspeed, and we're doing a promotion right now through Replay FX where you can buy it. You'll get Rocks for free. Ooh. Rocks is a mini game. It's I think it retails, I hope I don't screw this up, for $3.99 on the website. So about $400 for the mini game. We'll give you that for free if you buy your P3 now. And that game is a mini game. It's totally different than a traditional pinball machine. We lift up all the walls, and we have asteroid-like things floating around. We call them rocks because they're rocks from outer space.
Get it?
And you shoot the pinball at them, and you blow them up just like the game Asteroids, and you progress through waves. And it's a totally different experience. If you're a pinhead, if you love pinball, but you've got a family and you've got kids that are into video games, or you've got other people, your spouse or whoever, that doesn't like traditional pinball because it's too complex, or they don't understand it, or they don't like playing against you because you're good at it and they're not so good at it, these other types of games give them things on the platform that they can enjoy. You can justify buying an expensive toy when it's not just for you, but it's got things everyone in your family can enjoy. So we have these games like Rocks. We developed a game for little kids called Barnyard, where we have barnyard animals running around the screen, and you shoot them with the ball and they make noise, and the little kids love it. Mm-hmm. It's silly for us adults to talk about, but you go watch a 4 or 5 or even an 8-year-old play Barnyard, and they're having the time of their lives. They're jumping up and down
immediately too,
because it's a video game and they understand.
It's like, I hit the thing, it does the thing, I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah.
We came out with a game called Cannon Lagoon, which is our second physical playfield module, and it's very different from Lexi. And we did that on purpose because we wanted to come out with a traditional game and show the traditional pinball people that we can do that we can create the same kind of a playing experience on the machine, and we can also create something that's totally different. And I want to drill down on Cannon Lagoon a bit because I like to tell my philosophy of what's going on in the pinball industry. And on location and things, because a lot of people think that pinball on location has dried up 10 years ago or whatever because pinball machines are too complex and too hard to maintain. And that's probably a part of it, but if a game earns money, if a game earns good money, it doesn't matter how hard it is to maintain, they will pay people to maintain it. The problem with pinball, traditional pinball in the location environment, is that people like to play games for fun that they can walk up to and understand. And pinball is not that. You can go up to any video game in any Dave & Buster's or Main Event or any arcade, and it's obvious what you're supposed to do. If it's a driving game, you're supposed to drive. If it's a shooting game, you're supposed to shoot the bad guys. If it's a game like, I don't know, Fruit Ninja, you're supposed to swipe the fruit. It's very intuitive, very easy to understand. Pinball is not that.
No.
Even I can't walk up to a new pinball game that I've never seen before and know what I'm supposed to do. It takes many games, many hours of time to figure out the progression of rules and to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And nobody wants to do that. They want to stick a quarter, $1 in a machine and play it and understand it, have fun, accomplish things that make sense to them, and feel good about what they're doing. Pinball is not that. So we've taken this platform and we've created games that can be that. Barnyard is that for little kids. Rocks is that for sure. You shoot the asteroids. Cannon Lagoon is a physical playfield layout that is easy to understand. It's got 5 shot lanes, 2 on the outside, 2 on the inner, and then 1 in the middle. And it's got an LCD behind that, which has targets, which we draw things that you're supposed to shoot. Anybody can walk up to a Cannon Lagoon playfield and play the game Cannon Lagoon, where it's pirate ships that are going back and forth across the screen. And it's obvious that when the pirate ship is in front of this lane, I'm supposed to shoot this lane. So people can walk up to it, understand it, enjoy a game. You watch people play Cannon Lagoon at a show, and you'll watch pinheads walk up, and they're like, what is this? This is a little weird. This is too simple. I don't know what it is. And you watch their kids or their spouses play it, and they're smiling, and they're having the time of their life. I've had 2 people walk up to me at TPF. This is not a joke. It sounds like a joke. They've walked up to me at TPF and said, Cannon Lagoon is the best pinball machine they've ever played. And I am a pinball guy. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Yeah. But they don't get the complexity of a traditional pinball game, and they liked walking up and seeing this thing that they could understand, and they could work through it and enjoy it because it was obvious what to do. So Cannon Lagoon is that. But we've taken this Cannon Lagoon playfield and we started to create mini games on it that make more use of the shot lanes in a relation to what physical pinball is, or what traditional pinball is, where the outer shots can be loops. If they were connected, they can be loops. Well, we can shoot a ball into one lane, kick it out the other lane, and that's now a loop. You shot it this way, it came back this way. That's a loop. We can do virtual ramp shots where you shoot a target or you shoot a lane and it pops back out the wire form to the opposite flipper. That's exactly what a ramp does.
Yeah.
You shoot it in a lane and it comes back to a flipper. So we can create virtual recreations with physical balls and physical ball paths of traditional pinball shots and create content that's more traditional pinball on this simple layout. So we have a game coming out called Wizard. It's a training application which teaches you how to aim, it teaches you how to control the ball, it teaches you how to do all the things you need to be better at pinball. And we implement things like that on that game. There's virtual loops and virtual ramps, and it can detect when you're doing passes and show you how to do passes. Because we have the LCD under the ball. We can show you what the ball path would be like from one flipper to the other while you're doing a post pass. Or while you're doing a tap pass. Or
here, do the post pass, and it'll show you what it's supposed to
do. Make your physical ball follow the path of the virtual ball on the screen. So we can do all that stuff and teach you how to play pinball. And we can do that with a playfield like Cannon Lagoon. And we have a game coming out that we showed at Texas Pinball Festival called Grand Slam Rally. The baseball. Oh, you showed it on the stream.
I streamed it a little bit.
Yeah. So that's a totally different concept, this baseball concept, pitch and bat concept, that it makes perfect sense to be implemented on a thing like the Cannon Lagoon layout where you've got shot lanes where you might have outfielders in a baseball game. So the variety and the possibilities are endless. We have a bunch of ideas. We're working on our 4th playfield layout now. So game number 4 is in process. Game number 3, which is Cosmic Kart Racing, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon, is shipping in just a couple months.
Nice.
And this platform is just something that we can build on and grow and develop more games and see where it goes.
Awesome. So let's see.
I jumped ahead.
You did. Just going through my list of questions. I want to make sure we cover everything I wanted to. All right. So let's. Were any other current games? What about like something like Heads Up?
So Heads Up is a Heads Up is an interesting beast. We came up with Heads Up to demonstrate the network capabilities of the P3. So we developed this head-to-head pinball game. It's a very simplistic rule set game. It uses the Canon Lagoon layout, and you connect two physical P3s, whether they're next to each other in the same room or across the world from each other. It doesn't matter. It's all network connected. And you're battling against somebody else. It's a heads-up game. You're heads up against somebody else. We don't know if that's going to be fun over the internet. It's super fun when you're standing next to somebody. If you haven't played that game in person, you probably won't understand what I'm talking about. But when you get next to somebody and you see their score going up and you have to hit 3 shots to catch up, it gets super exciting. And we went to TPF. We brought it to TPF twice. I remember the second year, there were these 3 girls who had just come from soccer practice or something. They stood in front of that game for like 2 hours. Their dad was so happy that he could just sit back, and they were having a blast on this game. They were probably 11, 12, 13 years old, just having a blast, trying to beat each other, trying to get the high score. It's a fun game when you're standing there next to somebody.
That's awesome.
And playing it.
It reminds me of they have those heads-up tournaments. Have you seen any of that streaming where they'll have, like, say, 2 Aerosmith machines, and
where they're trying to get to a goal.
Everybody achieve this one goal.
Yes.
And I imagine it kind of creates that same kind of situation.
Competitive gaming is fun just because you're trying to beat the other player. If you have very specific shots you're trying to shoot, it gets very tense and exciting. Being able to do competitive games head-to-head on a platform is cool, and it enables a whole new way of doing tournaments. Right? Tournaments now, they're whoever gets the best score, whoever accomplishes a goal first, which is what that head-to-head style tournament is. On the P3 with network connectivity, it's true internet-based or multi-game-based competitive gaming. It can be symmetric, where you're both trying to do the same things, or it can be asymmetric, where one guy's like the pitcher in the baseball and you're the hitter, and you're controlling offense or defense or whatever in various games. So it enables a whole new world of competitive gaming, which is neat.
Let's talk about, so people have talked about, keeping score. I have an app called Pindigo on my phone that lets me keep track of my high scores. But as we know, every single pinball machine is different. Mm-hmm. Could be set up different. Mm-hmm. How do you combat against online play where, I'm here, mm-hmm. you're in Texas, I'm playing against you. How do I know you don't have the glass off and you're just like going crazy and getting a high score that way?
If you take the glass off and you play a game on the P3 with your hand, it knows you're doing it. So in Lexi, if you take the glass off and you start hitting the shots or the targets or whatever with your hand, it literally brings up a message and calls you a cheater. Cheater. We have not yet tied that into disabling the wizard mode or things.
Okay.
But that's what I want to do, because I think if you're going to get to the wizard mode, you need to be able to get to it by playing, not by cheating. But we have other features of the game, like saving state, restoring state. So if you really want to get to the wizard mode, you can play 3 balls and save your state, mm-hmm. and then start a new game and restore your saved state, mm-hmm. play another 3 balls, and get farther and farther and farther and farther in the game. Some people think that's cool. Some people think you have to get to the end in 3 balls. So set it up however you want. It's up to you to use the feature or not. But, no cheating. We also have a digital... we call it digital level. We have an accelerometer on the p-roc board. So we can tell exactly what level and what pitch the machine is set at. So we can tell you if your machine is pitched higher or lower than your competitor's machine. And we can either say you can't play against each other because the machines aren't set up the same way, or we can handicap you. If you've got your machine set up shallower so that your flipper shots will be harder, we can weaken your flippers. Or we can try to do things to level the playing field, so to speak.
Good one.
But we can also use that in other ways, right? We can detect maybe your game's on location and it's gotten dirty and you can no longer hit the left ramp shot because your flipper's a little bit needs some tuning or whatever. We can detect that and increase the power of the flipper. So we can try to do things to make the machine kind of service itself, mm-hmm. and help you understand when you're playing against other people and they're set up differently than you.
That's great. That's a huge step forward. I love it. All right, let's talk about what's ahead. Cosmic Kart Racing is the next game from Multimorphic coming out in a few months, like you said.
Yep.
We're going to be streaming it here tomorrow night. Talk me through the concept behind Cosmic Kart Racing and what's going on.
Yep. So people ask me all the time if we're doing a license. And
I got a Q&A session. We got a lot of questions about licenses.
Oh, licenses.
Yes.
Okay. Well. So then, instead of giving away the answer to that, I'll just say Cosmic Kart Racing is an idea that's very popular. It's a very common type of game in the video game world. People understand what kart racing games, Mario Kart and things like that, people understand what those are, and they know what those entail, power-ups and different racetracks and environments and things where you're doing head-to-head racing and all that kind of stuff. So while Cosmic Kart Racing is obviously not a licensed game, it's a concept that is essentially a license of its own, or a free license, because people understand it. And people can relate to it and know how to play it without necessarily knowing a lot about the code. So one of the things we wanted to do with Cosmic Kart Racing, which is not Lexi, is make it a very high-speed, fast-flowing layout. It's a racing game, so you want balls to flow back to the flippers so you can hit loops and you can hit the same ramp shot maybe over and over and over again, or whatever. So Cosmic Kart Racing is more of a traditional fan type of layout versus something like Lexi. I happen to personally love fan layout games because I like fast flowing games. I love being able to alternate ramps or flow around loops or string combos together. That's what makes pinball fun for me. So Cosmic Kart Racing is a design where it's got 3 orbits. It's got an outer orbit, it's got an inner orbit, and then it's got a mini orbit on the right under the right ramp. It's got 2 ramps that cross. So the left ramp goes back to the right flipper, so you can loop the left ramp over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. The right ramp does the opposite, which is go back to the left flipper, so you can loop the left ramp or the right ramp over and over and over again. And they also, all the shots except the left ramp can stop the ball. So that means if we think you're abusing the same shot over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and we don't want you to be able to do that, we can lift a post or change a diverter or basically grab the ball. That's the physical shot layout. But to that, we added some features that are super cool that we had to kind of create new technology for. And one of those is our use of LED lights. Because the concept for Cosmic Kart Racing, can you go back to the picture with the show setup?
Right there.
Yep. So if you zoom in on that, if you guys can full screen it and look at it on your computers, you can see that the back glass or the translate image for that is showing you what the concept of the racetrack is. And this is a racetrack in outer space where you don't have the normal sense of gravity. And so we have 4 tracks inside of a ring. And actually, the whole display that you're seeing in that picture is a recreation of the ring. That's a greenish light on the right, a red light on the left, and the top is blue in the game. Mm-hmm. That's a recreation of the ring. But in the translate image, you can see the race track. You have a yellow track, you have a blue track, you have a green track, and you can't really see the red track. But the karts that are riding on these tracks, they're not limited to being face up on the bottom. They go around basically all the way around the loop. So the top track will be upside down and the kart will be upside down on it because you're in outer space and gravity's different. Gravity is whatever we want it to be because we made the game. So we created this thing with colors. When you play the game, you are a color. You're the color of your track. So if you're playing on the blue track, then you're supposed to hit the blue shots. But what are blue shots in pinball? Mm-hmm. You either have a light in front of the shot, which is a traditional insert, which will be lit blue, hopefully. Or maybe you have a light hanging above the shot, which is trying to tell you that shot is blue. But we wanted to try to recreate that concept of having the whole track be lit. So we took a few RGB LEDs.
There's a couple in there.
Just a couple. We took 900 RGB LEDs and lined every shot in the game full with RGB LEDs. So we can light up every shot to be the color that you're supposed to shoot, or we can run chase patterns and every single RGB light on there is individually controllable. So we can do any pattern we want. We can go nuts. I think the most RGBs in a game prior to Cosmic Kart Racing was Total Nuclear Annihilation. Maybe there was a Jersey Jack game that had more. I don't know.
Maybe Wizard of Oz, I don't know.
TNA certainly had the most using our boards, and getting to 900 is something that no other manufacturer can do right now because of the technology we had to make for it.
So what are the Pinside guys supposed to do when they want to put LEDs all over their ramps? You left them nothing to do.
Oops. They're supposed to enjoy it.
Oh, you're just supposed to play it.
Yeah, just enjoy it.
Oh, well, I kind of like that.
So we lined up all these shots with lights. We can change all the colors. We can do all these cool patterns. When you see the stream tomorrow, you'll get to see these lights in action. Even just our attract mode is actually just like I like just standing back and watching the attract mode play over and over and over again. So that's one feature we added. We also took this. It's been done before, where you take a magnet and grab a ball, or you accelerate a ball, or you stop a ball. Mm-hmm. But what we did is we lined the right ramp with 3 magnets. So if you shoot up the right ramp and the magnets are set to accelerate, then if you only get the ball partially up the ramp because you didn't hit a super clean shot, then each magnet can progressively accelerate your ball around the ramp and complete it for you. But farther, we can do things like locking balls. We can stop balls. We can take these 3 magnets on the ramp and implement a physical ball lock. Right? You shoot up the right ramp, one of the magnets grabs the ball. It can either hold it or it can throw it up to a different magnet, and then that second magnet or third magnet can hold the ball. And you can implement a full 3-ball ball lock on a feature that's also in play, right? Because you can then shoot up additional balls up the ramp, mm-hmm. and it can either ricochet or cascade through the balls, kind of like a railgun. Mm-hmm. It can ricochet and cascade through the balls, or we can release the balls into a multi-ball or whatever. We can make use of these magnets. I know magnets have been on ramps before to do things like accelerate and High Speed 2 or
No Fear.
No Fear had one that actually grabbed it, right?
I think it just accelerated it around the upper loop.
I don't think anyone's ever done 3 on a ramp, and done 3 on a ramp that can lock the ball. Mm-hmm. Farther, if you're doing one of these modes where you want to stop the ball and throw it back at the player, we can do that too. Right? So you're shooting the right ramp, you're looping it, and we say no more. Well, a magnet grabs it, and then it throws it back in your face. Yeah. So just new features like that. We like, so far, every playfield we've developed, and hopefully for the next few playfields, everything we do will have new ideas and new technologies, so we can try to introduce new things to gameplay.
And so the third-party developers are going to be able to get this whole new playfield and use that to implement even more new games and different features and things like that too.
Yeah,
right?
We actually expect CCR to be a pretty popular game for the third-party developers. But also the third-party developers have full access to our mechanical parts of our game specification. So if somebody wants to develop their own playfield module, they can do that too.
Oh, wow.
So we specify the mechanical interface, we specify the electrical connections that you saw in those 4 connectors, and people can develop their own playfield modules, drop them in, do whatever they want. But yeah, CCR is going to be super exciting to see what people do with it.
It's super fun.
But we should talk about a little bit more about the game.
Yeah.
In the sense that...
So there's like power-ups and...
So back in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s, pinball machines weren't just 3-ball games. Right, there were games that were timed games. There were games that were 1-ball games, or games that you could extend your play by hitting shots or doing things. But in the 90s and since then, pretty much every pinball machine developed is a traditional 3-ball game. And to me, that's cool. I mean, I like pinball. I like physical pinball. I've had a bunch of machines. I still own machines, and I like what that is. But there's so much more we can do. And that's, if I relate that to the video game world, it's like having every video game be a 3 live game, where you get 3 lives. And you lose a life, you respawn, you start again. But there are video games that are timed, and there are video games that have you're just progressing through an adventure, and if you die, you're dead, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to explore a lot more of that in pinball. We can create a lot more interesting playing experiences by changing up the game structure. And in racing doesn't make any sense to have a 3-ball game. What are you doing when you're racing? You're trying to win a race.
Yep.
So if you go out and you play a driving game in a video game in an arcade or something, you are either playing against other people, and when that happens, whoever wins the race wins, and then your game's over.
Mm-hmm.
There are other games where if you play by yourself, you win a race, and cool, that means you get to play the next race, the next heat, and you get to play more progressive or challenging tracks or whatever. In Mario Kart, a kart racing video game, you can play these things where you can play 4 races in a row, or you can play 8 races in a row, and then you're trying to collect as many points as you can by finishing high and getting the trophy at the end because you got more points than every other character. So Cosmic Kart Racing is the physical pinball version of that. You're racing. The game is not a 3-ball or 5-ball game. If you drain, you're not done. If you drain in Cosmic Kart Racing, it's basically the same as your cart falling off a track. It spins out and you lose all your velocity and you have to start over from zero velocity. You've got to hit shots again. You've got to collect power-ups. You've got to use them again to win. You've got to get faster. That's what kart racing is. So that's what we've implemented in the pinball game.
That's great. And I've noticed little nods to Mario Kart where you can hit the start button after you drain when the ball's kicking out. If you hit it at the right time, it gives you a little boost.
I think most kart racing games have a concept of where if you're starting from a dead stop, you can get an acceleration boost if you do the right sequence of buttons or the button at the right time. So we have that too, yeah.
That's cool. And of course, there's power-ups. You can use sometimes when I'm playing, the enemies, the other racers will use a power-up and it puts the scoops at the walls up to block my shots.
Yep, it's called blockade. So that blocks both ramps. So if you're trying to hit the ramps and somebody puts a blockade up on you,
worst.
But if you have the shield,
out it goes.
Yep.
So you gotta use your power ups strategically. So there's a shield power up. There's a boost that obviously makes you go faster. The EMP.
There's an EMP which basically makes the other guy spin out and stop. There's a blockade which blocks them, and we recently added a multi-ball.
Oh, I got that one randomly.
So if you're far enough behind,
that means I was playing really bad that game.
If you're far enough behind, kind of like how Mario Kart, if you're way in the back, you get a couple of power ups that help you
get the bullet bill that lets you.
Yeah, it tries to bring everybody. It's called elastic racing, where the people in the back usually get more advantages to get front, and it's usually harder to stay at the front because you're getting pounded by missiles or whatever. We do a little bit of that. If you're way in the back, you get a multi-ball power up. You can hit, I think it's the launch button to launch out 2 additional balls or 3 additional balls. I think it's 3 additional balls. And that just helps you collect more speed as you're hitting shots.
Nice. Yeah. It's really fun to it took me and it's pretty obvious too because on the sides it's got the question blocks kind of remind you of the Mario Kart blocks. So it's pretty intuitive what you got to do. And then you've got the captive ball post that you got to hit and it changes colors. So it's got a cool light show on it to actually collect it. So that's cool. Can't wait to show you guys that
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I've been de-stickered. B-stickered. I've been B-stickered.
Yeah, he has. He did that himself. I didn't even make him do that.
Yep.
So if you're coming to Pinburg, I'm going to have these. So these are brand new. Come and see me. All right, let's get into. Before we do viewer listener Q&A, you mentioned a few times that you have pinball machines. I mean, you've owned a number of pinball machines.
Yep.
Excluding the P3, what's your favorite game?
Attack from Mars.
That's a great choice.
I've had both Attack from Mars and Theater of Magic since '97. And both of those games probably won't leave. They're the first 2, and they'll probably be the last 2.
Nice.
I've been through 11 games. Right now I have those 2 and Whitewater.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, great games. All right. So we're going to get into Q&A. I've got some questions that folks sent in. We've been answering questions throughout the night here. If you got more, throw them in chat, and I'll get to them after we go through our viewer listener Q&A here. But first one up is from Fugel. He asks, can you add upper flippers with the modules in the P3? So can you add a third flipper to the upper part of the playfield?
Sure. The upper playfield module is literally a blank slate. We define the length of the width, and we define some keep out spaces where there's physical mechanisms underneath in certain areas. We've kept those physical devices pretty low so that you have 6 or 7 or 8 inches worth of space to add mechanisms of your own underneath your playfield. But it's literally a blank slate. If you want to put upper flippers, put upper flippers. If you want to change out your side modules, and put different target configurations or active devices there too, you can do that too. It literally is a blank slate. The only challenge with putting things in the lower portion of the playfield is you have to re-engineer them because you can't go through that playfield surface. But we engineered the flippers, we re-engineered the slingshots, and we've talked about ways that we can re-engineer pop bumpers and everything else to float things above the surface.
Nice.
On the upper playfield portion, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's just more like traditional up there.
Yeah, in fact, most of the features in Lexi, the targets, for instance, are off-the-shelf stand-up targets and off-the-shelf pop bumpers, and you can put spinners and whatever you want up there. It's standard stuff.
Nice. So Skip Nanny and Rudy Soup have been obsessed with Fortnite lately, and they want to know when Fortnite Pinball is coming. And then that kind of progressed into we have a Discord channel, and that kind of evolved into a discussion about a battle royale style pinball. Are you familiar with the battle royale video games that are all the rage right now?
Nope.
So what it is?
I've been busy.
Yeah. So I have an 11-year-old, so I know all about Fortnite. It's a game where it's a shooter game where 100 people get dropped onto the playfield.
Okay.
And then you all battle it out to figure out who's going to be the last man standing.
Okay.
So
that's neat.
Especially with your online capabilities of the P3, people were talking about, this might be a possibility on this platform.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, everybody could drop into a game, and like whoever survives the longest is the winner. Or you could like take out other players somehow.
Clearly, Skip Natty and Rudy Soup should be developing.
I think so. I don't think those guys are. They're not on that level.
They're just idea guys.
Yeah, they're idea guys. Okay. They're not action guys.
Well, what they need to do is talk to their friends.
Yeah, they got to have some smart friends.
They got to have
can
some
make
friends.
that happen. Awesome. All right, from Pin Daddy, he says, what game do you want to see on the platform? If licensing and cost was no object, who would you like to see take a stab at designing the game? He says he thinks Harmonix would come up with something great. Harmonix are the guys that made like Amplitude and Frequency and Rock Band and all those games.
We've actually talked to a couple of pretty big game development studios. The challenge, of course, is no big name studio is going to develop a game for the P3 until we have a user base big enough to justify them spending time and money developing a game. Yeah. So we're going to get there slowly. We're growing organically. We've got a bunch of games out. We've got 5 games shipping now with the 2 playfields and 3 mini games, and we've got more physical pinball or physical upper playfields coming, more mini games coming, and our user base is growing. We are just keeping ahead of orders now, and we're hoping to grow our orders as we sign up more distributors and get more machines out. But the point is, once we have 500, 600, 1,000 machines out there, then it'll start making sense for bigger name studios to start creating games. But forget people outside the industry. If we have 500 pinball machines in people's homes or on their locations, then the other manufacturers should be making games for the P3 too.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? You have an installed user base looking for games. If you could build a game without having to, build out your cabinet and do all your infrastructure and create a team to manage all the manufacturing of a whole machine, if you can just create a game and take advantage of an installed base of users who want content, it's basically it lowers the development cost significantly, it lowers the manufacturing cost significantly, and it has the same upside on sales potential. If a new manufacturer wants to sell 500 or 600 games or 1,000 games or even 2,000 games, and they already have people out there with a machine that can take new content, they can develop just that content, not develop new games, and sell just as many games as they otherwise would have, make exact same amount of profit they otherwise would have. And it just makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's like with your Nintendos and PlayStations. Lots of different companies make games for them because once you get them in enough houses, people want content. Yeah. And they're ready to spend the money. And they bought this platform and they want to fill it up. So all that just makes sense to me. What themes do I want? Yeah. So I would love to sit here and tell you exactly which licenses I want to go after. And what's going to happen when I do that, Kevin?
Stern is going to snap it up like they snapped up the Godzilla theme.
Somebody will. There's just
I said that. He didn't say that.
It's just too competitive.
Yeah, you can't do it.
I've heard rumors that other manufacturers over the last 2 or 3 years have had other manufacturers go out and try to steal all of the licenses that they were working on. And it's small circles, right? There are only so many people that talk to the licensing employees at these big name studios. So word gets out when you start looking for a license, and somebody with more money is going to come in, and maybe they'll make a game with it, or maybe they won't, and maybe they just want to do it to stop you from building it. So yes, there are some licenses we want. We can't afford to buy them right now. We need to grow, and we need to create a bigger user base so we can build up some budget for those things. But after we do that, yeah, there are some we want to get.
Question from FC Burrs in chat. He says, is there any potential for a P3 being able to run a virtual pinball program like Pinball Arcade or Zen?
Yes. We've talked about that for a while. We have an interesting challenge, which is you come out with a pinball machine that has a video game, has an LCD monitor, and has some video game gameplay styles in it. And a lot of people who are not in front of the machine, not touching it, not playing it, just reading messages about it on the internet, they seem to think it's a video game. And it's not a video game. Yeah. But it's been a struggle for us to convince people that this is real physical pinball and you can enjoy it just like any other traditional pinball game. Yes, we can do video game things and enhance your playing experience and do all that cool stuff, but it's still physical pinball. So at least in the very short term, we're not going to take this story that it's a physical pinball game and kind of back up and say, here's a video pinball implementation on it. Yeah. We'd like to do that someday. It'd be pretty cool if you, I don't know, dropped a ball into a hole and it kind of virtualized and came out on the playfield as a virtual ball, and then you got to play virtual pinball with this virtual ball, and then you shoot it into a virtual hole on the screen and it pops back out a physical hole and you're playing physical pinball again. That would be cool. There's lots of other things that would be super cool, but for now we're going to keep it less video pinball and more physical pinball.
We got Scott Denisi in the chat. We were talking about Total Nuclear Annihilation earlier. He wants to know if Lexi Lightspeed has a kill screen.
Does it have a kill screen? I don't know, Scott. You'll just have to get to the end and see.
Rox does, though, right?
Rox does not have a kill screen.
Does not? Oh, I thought it did. You must have just been joking with me.
Maybe it should get one.
Maybe it should.
Does Lexi have? I don't know, Scott. Aren't you playing it now? Scott has access to a P3 now.
Okay.
So
I like that.
So
I hope that means good things ahead.
He says he likes it.
Okay.
And I think he's serious.
He's not just kidding.
I think he's really serious.
All right.
But he buys a p-rocs and he probably wants to keep me happy.
There's a relationship here to maintain, yeah. All right, a question from This Week in Pinball. He says, are there any plans for future license theme on this platform? And, it comes back to, it's funny because for the longest time, people were like, oh, I'm so sick of all these licenses. When can we get back to awesome pinball like Attack from Mars and Medieval Madness? And then we get stuff like Dialed In and Total Nuclear Annihilation, and people are like, when are we getting the licenses back? So you've talked a little bit about licenses. You do have plans to do licenses.
I would love to. I mean, licenses obviously bring with it, hopefully, an installed base of fans where you bring out a theme. I don't know whether it's a sports team that people love or a movie that people love or a comic that people love or whatever it is, a rock band that people love. It usually brings in sales just because of the theme, which is great. The problem is licenses cost a lot of money. And if you want a big name license, we're not going to come out with a cult hit kind of movie thing. If we come out with a license, it's going to be a big name license that can appeal to a lot of people and be family friendly and hopefully have pretty wide potential customer base. Yes, we want to do it. It costs a lot of money and you have a lot of development challenges associated with it, right? You have to do things in a way that the studio will approve. So it usually increases the cost of development. It increases the time of development, and potentially if you develop artwork or sound calls or music or whatever that the studio doesn't like, you have to redo it all anyway. So there are a lot of challenges there that don't have with unique or original themes. Of course, the challenge with original themes is that people may or may not relate to it, and you don't know how many people are going to not buy it just because they don't like the theme, or how many people will relate to it. So those are the trade-offs. We'd love to do a license, but again, it's a platform. It's an open platform. Other companies, hopefully with bigger budgets for going after big name licenses, they can create games. They can take advantage. We're happy if other companies develop cool, fun games for the P3 because it helps grow the P3 user base. It helps create this ecosystem that will roll, and it's better for everybody.
So let's and you can take this as far as you want. Let's talk a little bit about our artwork on the machines.
Sure.
And the you can obviously swap the art. So I can go ahead and make new art for Lexi if I want, or I can make it a Rocks art package or whatever if I want. Are you going to provide alternate art packages?
So when we brought out the P3 with Lexi, I think the only negative feedback we got were from 20 or 30% of the people looking at it said, I don't like that artwork because it looks like it's from the 80s or 90s. Which, funny enough, that's what Dennis was going for when he created the game. He wanted a Space Quest type of 90s artwork on the machine, and we delivered that. But some people want more modern styles of artwork, and some people are cool with. I like what we have. I think the Lexi artwork is a cool package. It's different than what you're going to find from some of the artists that are popular now in the industry. So we are listening. We listen to everything people say and suggest, and we find what they like and what they don't like, and then we adjust and adapt. And sometimes we do it very quickly. We can do software features very quickly if someone wants them, or we can... Well, sometimes it takes longer because we got to go find a resource to help us do something that somebody's asking for. And sometimes we just disagree with what people are saying and we don't want to do it. But we do have an artist working on Lexi artwork. So we will come out with a second artwork package for Lexi. We have an artist working on a second artwork package for Cosmic Kart Racing.
Nice.
And again, because these are magnets and because the size of the magnets is very well defined, anybody can do it. Anybody can come up with an alternate art package, and we'll even host the designs, or we'll go pay people to print them and then sell them on our website for you and give you most of the profit. This is how platforms work. We've created this system that other people can develop content. That content can be playfield layouts, they can be game software, and it can be artwork. And this is a thing that anybody can do. Anybody with the skills and desire to do that can go out and do it. And as more and more machines get out there, hopefully more people want to jump into that.
There you go. So all you aspiring artists out there, get to it.
Yeah. If you want to go develop artwork and sell it to people who have P3s, we'll help you do it.
Shoot Gerry an email and get it going. All right. So we got a couple more questions in chat, and then we'll wrap it up. So Thumper Thumps asks, drop targets and flippers, are they easy to rebuild and replace with existing parts? Or are you using off-the-shelf parts, or you got custom parts in there?
It's kind of a mix of both. The coils are standard, mostly standard coils. We're using standard rubbers. The stand-up targets are all off-the-shelf. Pop bumpers and those kind of things are all of our rubber rings are standard, but we do have a lot of custom stuff in the P3. The reason it's so heavy is because there's a ton of support structure for all the features. The reason it's expensive is because we had to design a lot of metal and plastic pieces to create a system that could be modular and that could support all the features we built into it. It was an engineering, it's an accomplishment.
That's certainly a feat.
That thing is pretty crazy.
It is.
But yes, so some off the shelf, some not off the shelf. But everything that's not off the shelf will be sourcing or supplying replacements to people that want to buy them.
So Scott Denisi wants to know if you're working on a new game layout, a Gerry Stellenberg layout.
Actually, Cosmic Kart Racing is my layout. So I designed Cosmic Kart Racing with TJ's help. TJ, Spicy Taco Muncher.
Spicy.
I would like to continue to tinker with playfield layouts and software development, but realistically, to build the company, I need to get time to spend on the business side and to help manage the teams and to allow creative people with ideas different than mine to create games, and I need to foster that. A lot of the P3 right now is kind of my vision and tweaked somewhat with all the other team members to figure out what we all agreed was fun and would hit all of our goals. But moving forward, I want to have multiple development teams all creating games, implementing their ideas, doing new cool stuff that I haven't even thought of.
Attack wants to know if he orders a P3, does somebody from Multimorphic come out to help us drag it up several flights of stairs?
No, but if you buy this thing called what is it,
Escalera,
then it does it for you, and you don't need us.
Amazing.
You know, the P3 is heavy. 330 pounds is heavy, but it's not as heavy as other machines out there. There are some other machines that are 350, 360 even. I think even the Hobbit was 400 pounds. So
yeah, Hobbit is no joke.
So the P3 is heavy, but it's not crazy heavy.
Spicy Taco, I think, just volunteered. He says Multimorphic offers a white glove delivery
Actually,
service.
we had a customer out in California, in San Jose. I think he broke his foot right before the P3 was supposed to be shipped to him. So he asked us if we had a white glove service. We do have a freight company that offers white glove. So if you want to pay a little bit extra, they'll come and set it up in your house. I don't know if they'll go upstairs.
Okay.
I assume they'll do whatever you pay them to do, but yeah, that's a possibility.
There you go. So I think that's it. Let's if people want to play the game, where can they play it?
So P3s are on location in Austin at Buffalo Billiards. There's one in California, I believe, in San Francisco at Alamo Draft House. There's one up in the Michigan area. There will be another one soon in West Virginia at Starport. And otherwise, get out to a show. We're going to have one at Replay FX this weekend with Joe Newhart and Pinball Star Amusements. And hopefully we'll be getting them through distributors to a lot more shows. So the P3, and we talk about this a lot, but the P3 is a game that we can talk about all day long online and in forums, and we can describe it. And you really don't get it. You really don't get an appreciation for the physicality of it until you play it. So yeah, we definitely encourage people to try to find one and definitely play it. We have customers now all over the world. So maybe ask on your local pinball community forums or whatever, and see who's got one or who's getting one. Or if you don't have one in your local community, definitely tell your friends to buy one.
Go stalk somebody on the Pinside map and find them.
Tell every one of your pinball friends to buy them, and then you can play it all day long.
There you go. You can also come out to the Buffalo Pinball Summer Open. We're going to have the very P3 you've been seeing on stream out there for you guys to play. It's August 17th to 19th. We're going to be at the Sandy Beach Yacht Club, the world's first yacht club pinball tournament.
Nice.
If you want to get in on that, registration before the end of the month, it'll save you $10. Go to buffalopinball.com/summer open, and you can join us for that. That's our Stern Pro Circuit event. We're running 4 separate tournaments, 1 main, 2 classics, and a women's tournament. So it's going to be a good time. Come out and join us then. Yep. If folks want to order a P3 or learn more info, how can they do that?
So everything's on multimorphic.com. We have a description of the machine. We have a description of all the games, and even all the PCBs and boards, p-roc and stuff is all there. Multimorphic.com.
Okay, very good.
You can buy now, and we'll ship in 1 to 2 weeks.
There you go. Awesome, Gerry. Well, thanks for joining us. Let's just wrap things up here with a quick thanks to our partners, folks who help make this podcast possible. Our friends at Comet Pinball, CometPinball.com, Double Danger, DDPinball.com. You can save 15% with coupon code Buffalo. They're going to be at Replay FX this weekend too with some new Buffalo Pinball shirts. So definitely check them out and grab a shirt there if you like. Pinball Life, if you got pinball machines, they break, you're going to need parts. Go to pinballlife.com. Jersey Jack Pinball, makers of The Hobbit, Wizard of Oz, Dialed In, and the upcoming Pirates of the Caribbean. Titan Pinball, get silicone rings for your pinball machines to replace the rubber rings. Use coupon code Buffalo at titanpinball.com to save 10%. Community Beer Works, when you're in town for the Summer Open, stop by Community Beer Works and grab a tasty beverage. You can check them out at communitybeerworks.com. Pin Stadium Lights, visit pinstadium.com. Use coupon code 10% to save use coupon code Buffalo to save 10% on their awesome lighting kits for your pinball machines. Pinball Arcade, pinballarcade.com. Virtual recreations of real pinball machines for your tablet, phone, game console, etc., etc. And Tilt Cycle also will be at Replay FX this weekend. TiltCycle.com. Use coupon code Buffalo to save 20% on his awesome custom pinball machine art that's upcycled from old busted, beat down pinball machines. So thank you to all those guys for making that possible. Phone number?
We don't have a phone number, but if you email me, info@multimorphic.com, and leave me your phone number, I'll call you back.
There you go. I can confirm that he will too. All right, so if you entered our Pin Stadium giveaway, we're going to be doing a special post Replay FX episode of the talk show next week. We're going to be giving that out. If you haven't entered yet, be sure to enter. Send an email to talkpinball@gmail.com with the subject line of contest, and send us a photo of your darkest pinball machine that you'd be putting your Pin Stadium lights on, and you'll be entered to win. And let's see. Speaking of Replay Effects, we're going to be at Kickback on Wednesday. If you guys are coming in early, you want to stop by and hang out with the Buffalo Pinball crew. We're going to be there on Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. right before their tournament starts at 7 p.m. So if you want to hang out and go to the tournament after that, we're going to be doing that. If you want to support what we do, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Buffalo Pinball. You can support us there. You can also support us by subscribing to the Twitch channel and use your Prime account. If you got an Amazon Prime account, you can get a free subscription. We appreciate you sharing that with us. Be sure to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all the things. We're Buffalo Pinball on everything. And if you have a question you want to answer on our future show, you want to give us some feedback, you can email us at talkpinball@gmail.com. Gerry, thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you again tomorrow night for the reveal stream of Cosmic Kart Racing. Thank you to everybody for hanging out in chat, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.